So here's a question for you. How does a massive empire, we're talking 10 million people, masters of engineering who ruled a huge territory, how does it just collapse? And not just collapse, but fall to a group of fewer than 200 men? It sounds completely unbelievable, but that is the shocking, true story of the Inca Empire, and we're going to unravel exactly how it all happened.
Okay, so let's set the scene. The year is 1911. An explorer named Hiram Bingham is literally hacking his way through the jungles of Peru, and he stumbles upon the lost city of Machu Picchu. You can just feel the pure awe in his words when he wrote that he thought it was the largest and most important ruin discovered in South America. I mean, can you imagine?
Staring at these incredible, silent ruins, Bingham must have been totally consumed by one single question, a question that, honestly, still hangs in the air today. What on earth happened to the people who built this place? Where did they all go?
And that question, well, it brings us to the absolute core of this whole story. It seriously sounds like something out of a fantasy novel, right? A riddle. But it's history. An empire of millions completely defeated by a small band of adventurers you could probably fit into a large living room. How is that even possible?
To really get how the Inca fell, you have to understand the incredible heights they reached first. This was no fragile backwater kingdom. This was an absolute powerhouse of a civilization, built in one of the most challenging landscapes you can imagine.
I mean, the scale of what they accomplished is just staggering. Think about it, a 5,000-kilometer road network crisscrossing the Andes Mountains. That let their armies and messengers move at lightning speed. They built entire cities out of massive stones, fitted together so perfectly with no mortar that they could survive earthquakes. And get this, they farmed over 1,000 different kinds of potatoes just to make sure they'd never face a famine. They were, without a doubt, the undisputed masters of the Andes.
So, if they were so powerful, so ingenious, what went wrong? Well, the first piece of the puzzle is that the empire was already hurt, badly, before a single Spanish conquistador set foot on their land. These fatal cracks were already starting to show from the inside.
You couldn't make this up. It was a literal perfect storm of disasters. First, this mysterious plague, which we now think was smallpox, sweeps through, killing the emperor and his chosen heir. This immediately kicks off a brutal, devastating civil war between his two remaining sons. And just as one of them, Atahualpa, finally wins that war, leaving the entire empire exhausted and broken, that is the precise, exact moment that Francisco Pizarro's ships show up. The timing is just unbelievable.
So here's the key thing to remember. The Inca were not at full strength, not even close. They were about to face this bizarre new threat from the outside at the absolute worst possible moment, when they were at their weakest internally.
And into this total chaos steps Francisco Pizarro. Now, this guy wasn't some famous general with a huge army. He was a ruthless, incredibly ambitious opportunist who came from nothing, and he was completely obsessed with finding a mythical land of gold called Peru. There's this famous story where his expedition is failing. His men are ready to quit, and Pizarro takes his sword and draws a line in the sand. He basically says, look, on that side of the line is going home to be poor. On this side is Peru, with all its riches, but also danger and maybe death. I'm going south. It was this incredible all-or-nothing gamble. Only 13 guys crossed the line to join him.
So let's really put the odds in perspective. On one side, you have the new Inca emperor, Atahualpa. He's fresh off his victory in a massive civil war, and he commands a battle-hardened army of up to 80,000 soldiers. 80,000.
And on the other side, Pizarro's ragged little company, just 187 men. It's not even a fair fight. It's a joke. It's a statistical rounding error. Logically, the story should have ended right there, with Pizarro's tiny force getting completely wiped out. But it didn't.
Because what happens next isn't really a battle. It's an ambush, a single shocking event that basically decapitated the entire Inca Empire in the space of an afternoon.
The stage for this is the town of Cajamarca. Emperor Atahualpa, who's probably more curious than concerned about this tiny group of weird-looking foreigners, agrees to meet them in the town's main square. And this was his biggest mistake. He totally, fatally underestimated them.
So Pizarro sets a trap. He hides his men, his few cannons, and his horses inside the buildings around the square. Atahualpa walks right into the middle of it with just a lightly armed ceremonial guard. Then, all at once, the Spanish attack. They fire cannons, guns, and send armored cavalry charging into the crowd. These were weapons of terror the Inca had never even imagined. And in all that chaos and carnage, Pizarro's men do the one thing that matters. They capture the emperor.
And just like that, it was over. You see, the Inca emperor wasn't just a king, he was considered a living god, the son of the sun. To see him captured, his guard cut down around him, it just shattered the entire political and religious universe of the empire in an instant.
Atahualpa, now a prisoner, figured out pretty fast what these Spaniards wanted more than anything else: gold. So he makes this absolutely mind-boggling offer. He says he'll fill a large room once with gold and then twice over with silver in exchange for his freedom. We're talking about one of the largest ransoms in all of human history.
And incredibly, the Inca delivered. For months, a river of gold and silver poured into Cajamarca, but Pizarro got paranoid. He heard rumors, probably false, that a massive Inca army was coming to rescue their emperor. So he panicked. He took the ransom, and then he had Atahualpa publicly executed anyway. It was the ultimate, final act of treachery.
Now, the end wasn't immediate. The Spanish tried installing puppet emperors to rule for them, but without its divine leader, the whole empire just started to unravel. There were decades of brutal resistance and guerrilla warfare, but the heart of the empire was gone. The very last Inca leader was finally captured and executed in 1572, a full 40 years after that fateful ambush. And just like that, this incredible civilization, a people who had mastered one of the most extreme environments on the planet, who had built one of history's truly great empires, was gone.
Which brings us right back to those ruins in the clouds. The story of the Inca's fall isn't really about a superior army winning a war. It's about that perfect storm, a civilization hit by disease in civil war at its most vulnerable moment, which then ran into a ruthless gambler who made a move that paid off against all possible odds. It really makes you wonder, when you look at silent stones like these, how many other incredible stories like this are out there, completely lost in the ruins of history.